Welcome to the arena. My name is Greg Sindelar, and today we're joined by my good friend, former Austin City Council member and current state rep, Ellen Troxclair. Ellen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Ellen, this is a free-flowing conversation. We'll keep it nice and tight for you. But I think for our audience, the thing that they'd be most interested in learning, at least at the beginning, is tell us a little bit about your story, because you have a very interesting background working in the city of Austin and now being a state rep. I think they'd love to know how you got to this point.
Yeah. To this day, I still think it must have been a God thing, because I never had any ambition to run for office. I hated public speaking, didn't have the ability to self-fund any kind of campaign. But my husband and I had recently gotten married. We were both working 2 jobs to kind of make ends meet and to save money to buy our first home, which we finally did. Yay! Well, not too long after that, we got our first property tax bill, and we kind of looked at each other and said, well, are you going to get massive increases every single year, no matter what? No. Are you? No. Well, how are we going to afford to keep this thing? And so, and I thought, well, if we're having issues and we don't have kids yet, how are the rest of the families doing this? And so really, truly, that sparked my anger at the city of Austin and their mismanagement of our money. And the next day I woke up and said, you know what? If I have the ability to do something about it and I don't, then I can't complain. And I was 29. I was a Republican in one of the most liberal cities in the United States. And I ran for the Austin City Council because I wanted to make sure that families could afford to continue to live here. And so the rest is kind of history, but I got elected because, believe it or not, Republicans and Democrats every once in a while can agree that the government is spending too much money. Yep. And also I did what I set out to do, which was pass the city's first homestead exemption, giving every homeowner in the city a break on their property taxes. And what a cool full circle story it has been to now have been able to vote this last legislative session on the biggest property tax cut in United States history as a member of the Texas legislature. So it's really a testament to what you can do when you get mad enough about something and want to do something about it and are willing to go outside your comfort zone to get it done.
Well, as an Austin homeowner, thank you for both of those.
I did what I could. I can't save them from falling off the cliff now, but hey, I fought the good fight.
I always tell people, I was like, Austin's a great city in spite of itself. And but there are some moments of sanity, well, that being one good example. And full disclosure, the first time I ever gave money to any candidate was when you ran for city council, and I had a sign in my yard. And the thank you I got from you, which was very nice, was you appointed me to a city commission. So I beat my head against the wall for 4 years. So
well, I had to bring some conservatives in with me to experience what it was like to operate in a 10 versus 1 situation. So
yeah, I got to feel that. I was on a construction advisory commission about fighting against unions and Workers Defense Fund, and yeah, I was a lot of 10-1 votes.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably the only one. Yeah. And it's funny because now, of course, in my current capacity, I represent 5 counties and a lot of rural counties who are like anything, they're everything that they know about Austin is bad, and they think like, well, how conservative is she really if she's from Austin? I'm like, no, some of the staunchest conservatives I know are in the city because it's hard. Yeah. I mean, it's easier to when you're surrounded by people who think the same as you. But man, to really stick your flag in the ground and advocate for what you believe in when you are wildly outnumbered, it really sharpened me. And it really made me a better advocate for my district. It made me, hone in on why I believe what I believe. And it forced me to learn how to build coalitions too, even with people who don't agree with me on everything or most things. I had to get 5 other people to vote with me to pass that homestead exemption. Yeah. And so it was definitely part of God's plan to kind of shape me into the advocate I'm able to be now for Texas.
Yeah. Well, and I always tell people, being a conservative in Austin, it's like being a Christian in Roman times. You're really trying to suss out who's with you and who's not.
That's right. That's right.
So you were on city council, and then you didn't run for a second term, and you went and you're kind of doing your business thing. And so then what made you say, you know what, actually I want to run for a state representative?
It's funny because I look back on all these decisions and sometimes I'm like, I don't know. Why did I do that again? In hindsight, this unpaid job with 4 special sessions last cycle wasn't the part-time job I signed up for. But no, really. So you're right. I didn't run for reelection. I had served my 4 years. I did what I set out to do. I didn't feel that calling in the same way that I had the first time around. And so even though it was kind of scary to think of, okay, I'm going to not run again, and we're going to see what else the future holds. It ultimately allowed me to focus more on building my business, on my family. I had 2 kids while I was on city council. I've had a third since then. So I'm a mom of 3 little ones. I ended up writing a book about why we need more young women, conservatives in particular, to step up and be a part of advocating for the values that we believe in, because their voice is so missing because they're so busy with young kids and families and jobs and all these other things. And so wrote a book about why we need them and how to do it. I was a senior fellow with the Texas Public Policy Foundation.
Another full disclosure. Yeah.
Yes.
We used to work together.
Working on preemption and property tax issues. And so anyway, I had been kind of traveling all over the state and speaking at conferences nationally around my book, and kind of helping to give women the encouragement that they need and guidance that they needed. And so when redistricting happened and there was an open seat that came available, prayed about it, talked to my family about it, and ultimately my husband kind of, said, as much as I hesitate to say this because I know what it means for our family, you got to practice what you preach. And you always say that if there's a need and an opportunity, that you'll do your best to fill it. And there's a need and an opportunity, Ellen, and you gotta do what you've been spending the last 3 years telling all these other women that they need to do. So, put my name on the ballot
Why
again.
did I write that book?
Yeah,
I gotta go
I
do
know,
it.
right? No, but it's actually been that. I mean, as scary as it was to write a book, which is another thing that I'd never done before, and didn't know right from wrong. But if you just do it, then you figure out. But I have gotten, it has been so rewarding. That's one of honestly the most rewarding things that I've done, even though it took a lot of time and was not profitable. But the responses from women across the country. I mean, it was an Amazon bestseller very quickly, and I to this day still get emails from people, North Carolina, California, all over the country, that say, I didn't know. I was upset, but I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know how to advocate properly. I didn't know where to start. And I read your book, and I'm running for my local school board.
That's
or
awesome.
I read your book, and
That's
I'm
awesome.
running for, this or that. And so to know that I've made a little bit of a difference in some of those women's lives, and ultimately, we, not just because they're women, but because they're amazing leaders and they have something to offer our in the realm of public policy. It's like, I know ultimately they're going to help make their state and our country better. So it's been extremely rewarding.
That's awesome. Well, maybe we can put like Step Up book or right here, so that people can go check that out, because it is a great book. My wife has read it, and she loves it as well. So talk a little bit about what last session. It was the sessions that never ended.
Yes.
You're a mom. You got 3 young children. I always think the most impressive thing when I look at what you've done and some of these other women is how do you do it all, right? Because I hear from my wife and from a lot of my female colleagues here about the pressures of all these other things you have to balance. How do you balance it all? I think it's one of the most impressive things that we see in public service.
Yes, it's not easy, but I will say that we're all juggling a lot, right? I mean, there's not a successful person that I know, successful in, whether in a lot of different ways, not just in business, but with their families, with their faith, whatever. Who doesn't prioritize what's really important to them. And I am far from having it perfected, but ultimately, when I was on city council, I'm gonna be honest here. When I was on city council, I had a county commissioner. We got into a conversation at a conference one time, and she said, Ellen, I think the reason that we don't have more young women in public policy is because you have to, once they have kids, like, you can't get to them. They're just distracted with other things, and you have to get to them before you have kids. And I thought, Well, I wanted to be offended by it. I can't believe that we can do anything but. And then I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I probably would have never run for city council
If you
if
had
I
kids
hadn't
first.
done it before I had
Yeah.
kids. But then I was already in it, right? I had a
Yeah.
4-year term, and I didn't really have a choice. And it was,
Yeah.
I would be lying if I said it wasn't very hard to sit on that city council dais for 12-hour meetings, non that went into the wee hours of the morning when I was 9 months pregnant or when I had an infant at home. But ultimately, that's why it is called public service, right? And if you're doing it for the right reasons, you are sacrificing something. And I do my best to be a present and loving mom. And I think my kids know that every day what I'm doing ultimately to for their future,
Yeah.
and it's been such a learning experience along the way for them too. Like I have them at the Capitol with me as much as I can. They've sat at my desk and voted with me. We talk. They come and see me speak to people and hear me answer difficult questions and hear me get put in awkward situations. And so they have learned just by being on this journey with me, whether it's on the campaign trail or in office. Like they're a part of it. We've just made
Yep.
it a family affair because we don't have enough hours in the day, right? So I
Yep.
don't have time not to. It certainly helps living relatively close to
Yeah. That's a good point.
to the Capitol. Luckily, I'm within commuting distance. I really feel for for other women of kids who are commuting
Yeah.
from farther places in Texas. And so, as much as we would want to get more land and move further out, I think we probably have to stay where we are for now. But anyway, long story short is we all have a million things going on. You have to make decisions every day about what you're going to prioritize. And for me, making sure that my kids grow up in a Texas that's hopefully even better than what I grew up in,
Yeah.
which is going to be hard to do, but that's important, and
Yeah.
they're going to come to value that.
Yeah, and the experience will be so cool, and you know, that's one of the things I've learned from watching you and others like you, Brooke, who former CEO
Yes,
here, is make your kids part of it. Next week
totally.
I have to go to DC, and so my oldest daughter's coming with me,
Yeah,
and so I was like, "You're gonna learn about energy. It's gonna be great, and then we'll do some fun stuff as well." And
right.
but I think like that's kind of a cool part of it, right? They have those experiences, and the more you kind of have those kids part of it, like that helps remind everybody, like, well, this is actually what it's about, right?
Yes,
Like I'm sure everyone sees your kids running around the Capitol, like, well, this is why we do what we
that's
do.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. For Mother's Day, my son, I have a 4-year-old son, and he did, at his school, they did a little like fill in the blank. My mommy does this. My mommy's job is blank, and he said my mommy's job is to vote. I'm like,
There you go. Yeah.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
you're getting it.
Yeah.
You're getting
Yeah.
it.
That's right.
So they are very alarmed at the number of elections that we have. I will say, like, I'll be like, "Yay, I won! Great job, team!" And then a few weeks later, there's a runoff or their general, and
Yeah.
they're like, "I thought you won. We're doing this again. Like, didn't we just do this?" So we need to clarify and simplify maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Some uniform election dates.
I, t-
Yeah.
I,
That's
t-
might be a good
I told
policy.
them I'd look into that because they're
Yeah.
very confused.
That's right. Well, so let's talk a little bit about your district. So, you mentioned you're on Austin City Council. Now
Yes.
your district's a lot more rural, some of the most beautiful parts
Yes.
of Texas. Now, obviously, I'm a little bit more local, so I spend a lot more time out in those parts. But, what are some of the things about your district maybe most people wouldn't know? And very important question, if I'm in your district, what's the place I have to eat at?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I will fight anybody for the title of the most beautiful district in Texas because
Yeah.
we've got everywhere from Marble Falls to Johnson City to Bernie to Fredericksburg. Just the heart of the hill country. It is the amount. I'm very grateful for the number of sunsets I've been able to witness
Yeah.
driving.
Yeah, that's
Driving
right.
back and forth across the district. And there's so many great places to eat, but you can't represent Marble Falls and not say you got to go to the Blue Bonnet Cafe for a good piece of pie.
So what's the pie that you get there?
I am a fan of the coconut cream pie.
Okay.
However, they have pretty much everything that you
Yep,
can
they do.
possibly dream
Yeah.
up. So it's nice, and it seems like at a time when some of our beloved places have closed for one reason or another, whether it was due to COVID or
Mhm.
inflation, to have the places that have been there, been part of the community, and been part of like the culture of Texas for generations is very cool
Yeah.
and worth preserving. So you got to go eat there.
Absolutely. Well, and I love Blue Bonnet Cafe. So you also, as I just said, you're a little bit more rural district, right? Than when
Yes.
you were representing Southwest Austin. Um, the thing that we've been looking at here at TPF is how do we strengthen and revitalize our rural communities, right?
Yes.
Because the values that have made Texas Texas are actually held there. As somebody who lives in Austin, it's not held here in Austin, right? And so we want to make sure that we are doing everything we can as an institution, as a
Hmm.
state to do that. So what are the things that are most important to your constituents, and what are some of the things that you think would help as we look at really strengthening these rural communities?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the border is always going to
Hmm.
be an issue that all of our communities are facing and are increasingly feeling the impacts of. So making sure that we're doing everything we can, even in the face of the federal government, kind of abandoning us. That Texas is doing what we can to fill the gap, to step in and secure the border and protect our communities. So it's been great to have kind of a firsthand look as a member of the Homeland Security Committee
Hmm.
of, yes, I want to do everything, do you want to do this? Yes, I want to do the buses. I want to do,
Yep.
we want to put the boots on the ground. Anything and everything that we can do to invest in border security ultimately is helping keep our communities safe. Water is certainly on the top of many people's minds in this part of Texas. I mean, you have a lot of people we're in drought, yeah, kind of a continued drought. What are we doing to continue to invest in water technology,
Yep.
desalination? You need to make sure that development is managed in a responsible, way.
Yeah.
Yes, we need housing, supply and demand, but at the same time, if we run out of water, we're all going to be kind of up a
That's,
creek, if you will.
yeah,
So
that's right.
without a way to get
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
So
We'll be stuck up the creek. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So just making sure that I am supporting groups that are really coming together to form coalitions that
Mhm.
advocate for solutions, supporting funding going towards water projects, and then I know you might ask about this and maybe in another question, but I do think that it's interesting that the taxpayer funded lobbying question
Mhm.
is something that I would love to dive into
Let's do it.
for perspective on kind of this rural versus urban divide,
Yeah.
because I think it's one that's been totally misinterpreted and misconstrued.
Yeah, you spend time in these communities, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
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 Well, so I carried the bill to ban taxpayer funded lobbying last session. And of course, I'm sure that people who are listening likely already know that, your local municipalities are
Mhm.
collecting tax dollars, and some of them turn around and use your property taxes to hire contract lobbyists who then go to the Capitol and fight against and kill good conservative legislation. Well, through the associations that they're all a part of, they've kind of tricked, I think, these smaller communities into thinking that that's in their best interest.
Yep.
But in reality, it's the big liberal cities that have the money and the tax dollars to go out and hire those lobbyists. So
Yeah.
it's Austin, Houston,
Mhm.
Dallas, San Antonio that are spending $1 million+ a year on
Yep.
these lobbyists. It's not Johnson City,
Yeah.
And so, in fact, the mayor of Johnson City has been one of my biggest supporters on that issue, because she's like, yeah, we don't do that.
Yeah.
And wait, what bills killed? What did they do? What bills were killed? So I actually think that is one of the biggest things that are putting rural communities at a disadvantage, because they can't keep up. They can't advocate for the policies that they believe in if they're kind of thrown into a group that are led by the big liberal cities who have a lot more money and a lot more
Yeah.
strength at the Capitol. And so I'm trying to do my best to set the record straight. And I think hopefully coming into this next legislative session, this will be the session that we kind of put a stop to it once and for all, because
Yeah.
it is undermining everything that we work to build at the state level, as far as like a thriving economy,
Mhm.
low taxes. It's undermining all of those bigger goals. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the most insidious special interests that we have out there. But you're totally right. It's driven mostly by the large cities. I was in Lufkin last week, and that was like, I go, "What's the main takeaway?" They're like, "We're tired of paying for all the mistakes that Houston and Austin are making.
yep,
Like, it's we've got to stop the insanity that they're doing."
yes,
I was like, "Well, let's go stop their insanity."
let's
Yeah,
do it.
so I get it. Well, so kind of taking, continuing down that path, you
Hmm.
not only carried the taxpayer-funded lobbying bill, but you also carried a bill about women in sports. Riley Gaines is your new BFF, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe we should start with, can you define what a woman is? My kids are very clear. My daughters are very clear on this, but I'm curious
Yes.
if you
Yeah.
can.
I don't know if you know this, but there are certain parts of our anatomy
They're
that
very
really
different.
very distinctly define the difference between a man and a woman. So again, as a young mom of two girls, like it really hit me. I've shared the story of the first time that Riley and I met, and to hear her say and hear her tell her story in her own words of, Ellen, it wasn't just that I had given up countless hours of my life to be at to train to be at the pinnacle of my sport. I gave up time with my friend. I didn't go to the mall. I didn't go to the movies because I was in
Yeah.
the pool every day to achieve this goal of mine. It wasn't that was taken from me. It was that I was, as a 21-year-old girl, my teammates and I were forced to undress in front of an intact male in the locker room, and he undressed in front of us.
Yeah.
And I thought that the adults would speak up for us, and no one did.
Yeah.
And like that just broke my heart, because it's to hear her describe it in such a direct way. She said, I thought the parents, the NCAA, the coaches, like I was a college student on a scholarship that I didn't want to lose. Like the fact that no one did, like, how did we let it get that far? So to be a part again now of being able to file the bill to once and for all define what a woman is, because there's places in statute where there are different benefits depending on gender and all of these things. And so it just says, here's a man, here's a woman, here's a boy, here's a girl. I'm sorry that you were confused and you needed a state law to define this for you, but here it is. So it didn't, unfortunately didn't pass last session. We had a lot of other things going on the burners, but I'll be refiling this session with the help and support of Riley Gaines. And I'm hoping that this is a session that we can get it through the legislature and just provide additional protections for women and girls.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as a girl dad, thank you.
Yes,
yeah.
You're welcome.
And so one of the other things you've talked a lot about, and you've been really out there on, is, kind of down this path a little bit, is protecting kids, right? So I don't want to give too much away because I want you to talk about it, but can you talk a little bit about what you're looking for next session and kind of the changes maybe we could see in our schools?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, Greg, when you were in school, did your mom tell you to pack up your TV, pack up your boom box, get your walkie-talkies together, any other toys really that you wanted?
Anything like I had like that?
No, just actually put it all in your backpack, middle school or high school, everything that's a great distraction. Make sure to set them all out on your desk when you get to school while the teacher's talking. Turn on the TV, watch whatever you want. Doesn't matter, appropriateness. No, of course. When you think about that's what we've done to our kids. We've sent them to school with a TV and a boombox and like this endless internet portal, which, by the way, people who are out to do them harm can contact them directly. We've put our kids in a horrible position because we haven't set them up for success in the classroom. And we put our teachers in a horrible position because we've made them the bad guys of having to enforce this addictive addictive device while they're in the classroom.
Kids in
yes.
the classroom, yeah.
So it is really time that we step up as parents, as lawmakers, as administrators and teachers, and say, kids should not have access to cell phones while they are in classrooms. There's a reason that cigarettes are illegal for those under 18.
Yeah.
Because when you are giving something that's addictive to a child, it is going to have negative side effects. And the statistics are shocking. And I know that I don't have to tell people this because we know it intuitively, but to hear that the number of high schoolers since 2010 has doubled who say my life has no value.
Yeah.
That's a concern. That one in four high schoolers agree with statements like that, and it's because of the comparison. It's largely due to the addiction to social media and cell phones.
Yep.
And so I've had some people say, just I want to address off the bat, some parents understandably, hey, I want to be able to contact my kid during the day, or what if there's a situation and they need to contact me? Well, first of all, depending on how they implement it, the cell phones are still in their bags. They're just in a yonder pouch, in a locked neoprene pouch,
Yeah.
or in a shoe rack, on the back of the door, something like that. Where if there's truly an emergency, first of all, of course, the landlines at the school are working. The teacher has a cell phone,
Yep.
but things can be a neoprene pouch can be cut open. And there's emergency situation, you can reach your kids, but the danger is on their phone. Like, we know that that's a
Yep.
what if situation, right? But we know the damage that is being done to their brains every single day. And so most parents, I think, are, when I've pitched this idea, they're like, "Oh my gosh, yes, please help me." They want
Yep.
the help. Even the students. I had a graduating senior say, "Ellen, thank you so much. Like, it pains me to think about all the conversations that I missed out on over the
Mhm.
last 4 years of high school, because we were all just staring at our phones and
Yeah.
over lunchtime." So getting our kids, providing them an environment where they can, where we're minimizing distractions, and they can socialize in person, building the
Mhm.
skills that are going to serve them well beyond their high school years, is absolutely critical. And so I'm encouraging our local school districts. I think 12 local school districts already have on their own taken action, including Killeen ISD recently unanimously passed a cell phone ban in classrooms that they're going to be implementing using, I think, yonder pouches during the day that can be unlocked after school. If you need, your kid can send you a text message back then. So the movement is happening, and I think it's happening at the right time, where parents are realizing, students are realizing, but the damage that we've done is really shocking, and we have to work pretty quickly to try to undo it. And when you're talking about appropriating billions of dollars, I mean, public education funding, of course, is a huge driver of our
Yeah.
state budget. And so to appropriate that money, knowing that, uh, again, that we're not even setting the stage for our students to be able to pay attention in classes, is alarming. So I think the movement is growing, and I'm going to be continue to kind of be spreading the message about it. I've gotten interest from lots of other lawmakers, lots of other parents and school board members. So let's join the movement. Let's get them
Yeah.
out of schools.
Well, and you're seeing it happen across the country. It's not just unique to Texas, and
Yeah.
you're seeing individual campuses do it. And I know there's always going to be pushback from parents and others, but I'm in the midst of reading the book. Was it The
The
Anxious
anxious generation.
Generation? And it's
Yes.
just like every page, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's
Yes.
just, I'm
So this
losing more and
is
more hair.
required reading. Like, for those of you out
Yeah.
there, go order The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. It
Yeah.
was extremely eye-opening. It really lays out not just the problems, but also the solutions,
Yeah.
so that's a really helpful blueprint. And you know what? This is a winning issue because it's a bipartisan one
Yeah.
too.
That's right.
So we've seen Florida pursue a kind of a similar statewide ban, and I just saw that California is now saying, "Hey, there's something to that." Los Angeles ISD just
Yeah.
nearly unanimously voted to get cell phones out of LA ISD classrooms. So, like, this is something we can all get on board with, and our
Yeah.
next generation is going to thank us for it.
Yeah. It's going to be really game changing for them.
Yeah.
All right. So last couple questions for I let you go. So obviously, one of the big issues last session, the big issue coming this session is parent empowerment. Most people think about that just school choice. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it. So I'm
Yeah.
going to continue down the education train. Where do you think that currently sits, and what are you expecting to see next session?
Yeah, the voters spoke pretty loud and
Mhm.
clear, I think, this last election cycle, that parents want the ability to choose the best education for their children. And I am lucky to have wonderful school districts in my district. I'm the product of of public education, but the reality is, we're failing too many kids,
Yeah.
and when we're spending upwards of $15,000 per student per year, and you see that over 60% of our third graders cannot read on grade
Yeah.
level. Like, that is that is not an outcome that is acceptable.
Yep.
It's not acceptable for the students. We're not doing right by them. It's not acceptable for the taxpayers. We're not getting a good return on their investment, and we can't keep doing the same thing and get a different result. So I think it is absolutely possible for us to both support our public school students and the vast majority of kids who will continue to choose great public schools, while also giving parents who cannot afford a private education, and whose kids are struggling, an opportunity to make sure that their kid is set up for success. We all know that that being able to read is like
Yep.
the number one indicator of how successful you're going to
That's
be
right.
in your life. So I've always been kind of on a soapbox about that. I think that we need to do bridge the divide. I mean, I've been thinking and talking about this issue for 2 decades now, and it is hard to see that we're still having that one side is still using the same arguments 20 years later, even though when we have the data now to know that the sky is not going to fall, to
Yeah.
know that the public school system is not going to be destroyed, to know that parents are still going to want to choose the local public school as long as it's providing their child
Yep.
with a great education.
Right.
And so I'm hoping that I think at the last year and the last session and the last bill that we had put together, it was a massive investment in public schools.
Yeah.
One of the biggest, in recent history financially, and a small school choice program, for
Yeah.
kids who were underprivileged in failing schools, didn't had learning disabilities, what have you. And the fact that we couldn't have a good faith conversation about doing what's best for the kids to protect some adults just really did not sit right with me, and it didn't sit right with the voters. So I
Yeah.
think now, coming back, it's something that I am always willing to have sit down conversations with, because there's so much misinformation out there. So I've spent a lot of time talking to parents and superintendents about why I believe what I believe and what the details are. And often the things that they thought, well, what about accountability? What about this? What about that? And I can say, well, actually, here it was in the bill. Here's how this addressed it. Here's the student,
Yeah.
and
Like, oh,
we have
yeah.
answers to that now.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
when we take the time to have open-minded conversations about what is best for the children of Texas,
Yeah.
we can get to the same place. But this coming legislative session, I think that hopefully we'll have the willpower now to be one of the over 30 states who has some sort of school choice parent empowerment program in place in their state, and really do right by our Texas kids.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed, and there's a lot of work to do, but I think you're right. And I always tell people, I was like, school choice is not a panacea that's going to fix everything in education.
No,
I go, but it really starts changing a lot of the dynamics within education,
right,
giving parents a lot more skin in the game,
right,
and we have to do it. Like we're as you said, we're losing kids,
yeah.
and that's just we have a moral obligation to every single kid in this state. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think we also lose sight of the fact that it's the parents' money to begin with. It's
yeah,
the taxpayer dollar to begin with that they're, that they're paying and that is being allocated to public schools. But this idea of like public funding, well, that comes from a person who worked to earn that funding, who then
yeah,
gave it to the
yeah,
government to hopefully be used for good,
yeah,
right? And so I every time I hear that, like, oh, you're going to take money from public schools, it's like, well, no, we've significantly increased the investment that we've made in
yeah,
public schools. I've voted for the largest increase, but also it's not you don't have a right to that money.
yeah.
That's
That's right.
that's somebody's money who's paid into it, and
Yeah,
if they're not getting the product that they're paying for, they have to have a way to come out of it. And I think one of the most compelling statistics that I have seen is that in areas that have adopted some sort of school choice program, outcomes for all students,
hmm,
including public schools students, increase.
yeah,
So isn't that what it's all
yeah.
about?
It's amazing what competition does.
That's right. That's right. So this is about raising the bar for
Yeah.
everybody.
We should have higher standards. I was at this elementary school in Amarillo, and this is what we want for every place. This is a public school, but I thought the principal said so well. She goes, "We have to move the cognitive load from the teachers to the students," and she just had this natural drive, and I was like, "We need a million more of this woman, and we could like change it." But she is so driven, but if we can add competition to that, we can really start putting that kind of mindset in every single school, public or private, charter, et cetera, in the state. And I think we can really make a difference in education and really get somewhere special.
I agree, and I have found that the more that you can come with those facts and figures, I have 12 school districts across House District 19, and it is amazing to see the different. Just there's a lot of different approaches. There's a lot of different approaches from superintendents, from school boards, and I will tell you, some of the best leaders and the best and therefore the best school districts, they'll say, you know what, I'm not sure that I'm so scared. I hear that the sky's going to fall, but I'm not so sure that I'm scared of this thing because I know that we have great schools.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that our students love going
Yeah.
here. I know that parents are moving here for this reason. And so, I think unfortunately they're just drowned out by the other side who are just don't want to, who are understandably scared of change. But it's time now because we've now lost another generation of kids that didn't have the opportunity to pursue the best education for them. So it's time.
Yeah, and the Texas miracle can't continue if we don't have
That's right.
a qualified workforce and we don't have kids reaching their potential. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right.
Yep.
All right. So last question before I let you go. Wasn't that long ago that the number of conservative women in the state house and the Capitol was very, very small, but that's really grown over the last couple
Yes.
cycles. And so I'm curious, what you make of that, and probably more importantly, as Texans, what we can expect from some of the leadership of these women who've stepped up.
Yeah. Well, I think it's gone 7 to 14, and now potentially maybe 20.
Yeah.
So that is really exciting. And again, not because they're a specific gender, but because they provide a diversity of thought and opinions and experiences that are helpful to well-rounded policymaking, because it's often the moms who are closest to the kid, to they care about what's going on in the classrooms, right?
Yeah,
and they're
absolutely.
engaged in a lot of the issues that are most pressing for the state at the time. So I think COVID in particular really opened some people's eyes into what was going on, and education in particular helped get women to say, you know what, I think I could offer something of value here. But at the same time, I'll tell you, I have always been frustrated that the left has gotten to own the idea of women's issues, when in reality, they don't even know what a woman is, right? So
That's right. That's a good point.
how can you claim to be the party of women when you can't define it?
Yeah.
And so it is, but the spokesperson matters. And so I think the more that we can show, like, hey, your voice is really needed and really helpful, and we can be the voice of. It's hard for you to say something like that. I can say something like that a lot.
I just go, yeah, that's right.
A lot
Yeah,
easier
right.
than you can, right? So it hits a little different when it's when it's coming from a woman. So I think if conservatives care about moving the needle on a broad range of policy issues that we all care about, it's nice to have the right people to put into the game. Like, hey, you're going to you're a great spokesperson on this issue. Let's go. You're going to be a leader on this issue. Because everybody can't be the right spokesperson for every issue. And I think that's something that the left has really picked up on. I think before the right, we don't want to have anything to do with identity politics, and we're scared of the idea of, oh, you're going to vote for someone just because they look a certain way or this or that. But at the end of the day, like, there's some really qualified women out there, and when you have an AOC type that's able to get the media attention and seem cool and hip, and then she says something, even though it's the absolute wrong thing, wrong policy idea for America, you have the next generation of people who say, oh yeah, that girl, I can relate with her, relate to her, and what she says must be right. Well, no, we need kind of role models for the conservative side too, to make conservatism cool again. So I hope I can be a part of that mission.
Well, and especially, what you have been, but especially as the left continues to really abandon what it means to be a woman, and the important and special part that they play, not only in the lives of their children, but in the lives of our society, right? It's just, and I think it's something that conservatives probably have neglected, but it's time for us to kind of take that field back.
That's right.
And the way that I think about it is, when it gets to some of these issues, I want Texas to be the best state in the country to raise a family.
Right.
And honestly, these women who are going through really tough, traumatic times, I want them to figure out, like, why do I want to raise a family, have a child in Texas, as opposed to go to California and have an abortion?
That's right.
And I think there's lots of things that we can do. And you're right, the spokesperson on some of this stuff does matter.
Yep.
And that's just the way it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm really looking forward to this new class and serving in the next legislative session and building on what we did last session. I mean, there were a lot of good conservative wins, but there's still a lot more to do, whether it's taxpayer-funded lobbying, defining what a woman is, getting cell phones out of schools. I could go on and on. There's always something new. The left
Property taxes.
The left always seems to come up with the things that we need to say, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's crazy. So working every day to make sure that we're going to be ready to go and ready to hit the ground running come January.
Awesome. Well, Ellen, thank you for joining us. Thank you for stepping up, as you say, and being in the arena. And thank you to each of you for watching this episode. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.